Few things are more upsetting than to learn that my client who wants to apply for adjustment of status entered the United States as a crew member with a C-1 visa. But when I meet with people who entered with a C-1 visa, I'm typically screening for two different scenarios that might allow them to still apply for adjustment of status inside the United States. First, let's talk about what a standard crew member would need to do if they married a US citizen. So let's say you entered the United States as a crew member. You planned to actually work on a ship as a crew member, and maybe you actually did work on the ship. So in that situation, you meet the definition of a crew member, and if you marry a US citizen, first of all, the US citizen will have to file a family petition for you. And then, if you've been unlawfully present in the United States for more than 180 days or more than 1 year, you'll need to apply for an unlawful presence waiver. After that gets approved, if it gets approved, then you need to leave the United States and go for a consular interview abroad. And then finally, you can re-enter the US as a permanent resident if everything goes well at your interview. I really want to avoid that whole situation because the unlawful presence waiver can take 3 or 4 years currently, and it's not guaranteed to get approved. And there are risks when you leave the United States to attend a consular interview. I would much rather prefer you apply for adjustment of status inside the United States. And there are two situations where you enter with a C-1 visa where you might be eligible to do that. The first one is when you enter with a C-1 visa and your purpose of entering with the visa was to transit through the United States and go to another place. So a C-1 visa can be used for crew members or in transit. Let's say, for example, you were in a country and you needed to make a pit stop in the United States on your way to your home country. In that situation, you may have entered the US with a C-1 visa, and that was in transit. You never planned to work on a crew. In that situation, if you end up not leaving the United States, you can probably still apply for adjustment of status if you later marry a US citizen spouse. I say probably because there's more to it than this simple scenario, but you might be eligible. Another situation is when you enter with a C-1 visa, but you never really planned to work as a crew member. You just needed a way to get into the United States, so you use the C-1 visa to fraudulently enter the United States. In that situation, you actually don't meet the definition of a crew member, and you'll be eligible to apply for adjustment of status inside the United States. However, at the end of the process, we'll need to apply for a fraud waiver, but you can do it inside the United States. And if you're going to be applying for a fraud waiver versus an unlawful presence waiver where you need to leave the United States, I would much rather you apply for a fraud waiver inside the United States because it's much faster, you stay inside the United States, and the process is simpler, in my opinion. I just want to make one quick note about this process. When you're applying for adjustment of status, sometimes USCIS will have a knee-jerk reaction where they'll just deny the application because they see that you entered with a C-1 visa. Sometimes they don't understand the subtle nuances of what the definition of a crew member is. So I like to write a cover letter explaining that to them. But if they still deny it, then we need to appeal the decision. And oftentimes on appeal, it'll end up getting approved. But I'm mentioning this because it could add to the time of processing and to the expense of the entire process. But legally speaking, you're only a crew member if your plan was to work as a crew member. So if you don't meet that definition, you're legally eligible to apply for adjustment of status in the US if you meet all the other requirements. I've been doing a lot of consultations on this specific subject recently for some reason, so I just wanted to make a video so that I could explain it for anyone out there who entered on a C-1 visa. If you did and you need assistance with your case, feel free to reach out. You could always schedule a consultation with me. The description of the video below has information on how to schedule a consultation, or you could always call my office. If you're new to my channel, subscribe if you're interested in family-based immigration topics, and I'll see you guys next week for another one.